Greetings, members one and all of the Salivation Nation. The most powerful reserve currencies in the world. We're going to take a look at those and visualize how they are allocated as to their power and most widely used in exchange and in trade, and how that differs than their actual denominated values in each of their countries. But also, we're going to kind of take a peek and look at this as to see these powerful currencies and exactly how they rate and how long will they survive. What is their lifespan, considering that all of these currencies and every currency around the world survives merely on the faith of the people derived from the decree of the governments, of the nations that encapsulate these currencies, known as fiat designation. So we'll explore this and also the tie-in with gold and silver and why gold and silver is so important to have, and but also as another example of why necessarily these currencies will probably survive for some time and not crash as some people expect soon. We'll explore this right now. So this is from howmuch.net. They've created this small little visualization or infographic about the most powerful reserve currencies. And people talk about how, and they assume the dollar holds a top spot for currencies, but by how much? And you've even wondered about what other world reserve currencies are also very powerful. They're currencies that a country holds in its foreign exchange reserve that can be used for international payments and to support a country's own national currency. Developing countries that export tend to hold more foreign currencies than developed countries or developed currencies. So which currencies are at the top of the list? They've compiled this easy-to-read visualization to find out about the world's top reserve currencies for 2019. So these are the total allocated exchange reserves by the currency in their dollar amount. So it's a dollar amount value for each currency. And it is no surprise that the United States dollar is the top on the spot with 61.82% of the share there. And it just goes to show you this graph, this pie chart essentially shows the dollar hegemony. I guess it's not really a pie, it's more of a cluster. But nonetheless, if this were a pie and these were cut out in little pieces, the United States has by far the largest. And you think about the euro, which was formulated in 1999 and finished pretty much with a big launch in 2002. The euro is second. With the U.S. dollar having 61.82% and $6.74 trillion worth, the euro has far behind, but still a pretty strong second place there. We're 20.24%, with $2.21 trillion there. Wow, pretty amazing. And surprisingly, next on the list is actually the Japanese yen. So that's $572 billion worth there. That is a 5.25% share there. The pound is at $495 billion worth, another 4.54%. Now the sterling pound, if you take a look at by its denomination, one would think that the pound is stronger than the dollar. But when you look at it in terms of the hegemony or the widespread use as far as trade and exchanges back and forth, the U.S. dollar is more widespread, more powerful in that regard. But nonetheless, you will see that usually a pound is, up to $1.50 in exchange rate. Then we have next in line, far behind actually these other nations, especially the United States, the Chinese renminbi. I would have thought the yuan would be higher on the list, but it is not. At 213 billion share there, 1.95%. is the Chinese renminbi. And then following that is the Canadian dollar at $210 billion, 1.92% share there. And then not far behind that is the Australian dollar at $182 billion, or 1.67%. The Swiss franc is the tiniest fraction here, and it is $15 billion, or 0.15%. And so that's the smallest measure there, the Swiss franc. But they have the most gold per capita, amazingly enough, of all the nations here. And then you have the rest of the nations collectively at 2.45%, small enough to make little pieces, too small to make other little pieces of pie there, at $268 billion worth. So that goes to show you there. And I think that this particular visualization, I think clearly is part of the driving force behind what monetary policy is for the United States today. Some call it new monetary policy. The only reason why I call it new is because they're emboldened to do it freshly anew, and that is to operate under the Keynesian model of quantitative easing and stimulus and and essentially money creation one way or another. And I believe that because the dollar is what it is and the way it's been for so long, even though we're not on the petrodollar, these are 2019 numbers, with all these other nations doing these and lowering interest rates to zero or below, we feel emboldened here in the United States to do the same thing because we're the biggest kid on the block. But make no mistake, it's bad policy in my view to do that, and that's why we hold gold and silver. And here's a little bit of what their commentary is here. They're saying the U.S. dollar makes up 61% of all central bank foreign reserves, making it the most popular and powerful currency in the world. The total value of all currencies held in foreign exchange reserves is equal to nearly $11 trillion. Think about that. The total value of all the currencies held in foreign exchange reserves around the world is equal to nearly $11 trillion. And if you think about that number and you think about where our national debt is just in the United States alone at close to 23 trillion, that's over double this number. That's a scary proposition. The US dollar also dominates the Forex trading market and has involved about 90% of all Forex trading. So there's another emboldened region there. And you think about it, the dollar is the hegemony of this. It is in everybody's best interest that it stays that way, or else filling in this gap may be very difficult to do for these other entities considering where their economies are. The whole world is really kind of hurting. They're in recession or near recession now. In fact, as Mick Mulvaney has recently mentioned in a press conference, he used to be the budget director, the euro and the US dollar make up over 80% of the world's currency reserves. Despite being a large part of the global trade, the Chinese renminbi makes up less than 2% of global currency reserves. And that just goes to show you, when you think about that, it helps you to, I think, understand a little bit more as to why Trump may feel emboldened to take on the Chinese with regards to trade and not hold out there. But also it helps you to understand that really, when you think about it, China is not as big a threat economically as some fear. To find the top reserve currencies in the world, they pulled the data from the IMF, and it's from the first quarter of 2019. It accounts for the currency composition of all the official foreign exchange reserves. Using the data, they created the chart, and I think that's good that they did that. Visualization, I think, helps, and I think a lot of us think visually. So here is, again, a list of these currencies here with the Chinese in number 5. Of course, the other nations here that are shown, the Australian dollars, the Canadians, and the Swiss are behind China. Reserve currencies play an incredibly important role in the world economy. Not only do these currencies affect their national economy, but they play an important role in the value of each country's national currency. As of 2019, the US dollar, euro, and Japanese yen are the most prominent currencies in the world, with the US dollar leading the pack by a fair margin. Currently, around 580 billion US dollars are used internationally. 90% of forex trading involved US bills, and about 40% of the globe's debt is issued in this currency. While some countries have called for the establishment of a singular global currency for stability purposes, there doesn't seem to be any imminent plans to do so. Yeah, and then we get a lot of pushback from certainly Americans, maybe not by other nations, but I mean with the United Kingdom leaving Brexit, even though they weren't tied to currency, there was some talk about Italy and other nations leaving, Spain, I think, as well too. Reserve currencies run the world's economy. By taking a look at the visualization, you can see the currencies are the most abundant and with the most influence in the global economy. So then the question is do you expect the US dollar to retain its dominance in the future? And I think it will for the near future. But if we do continue to do things that have other nations lose faith in it, especially considering we have the Chinese and Russians, which Russia doesn't even measure on this scale here, wanting to acquire more gold, I think you're seeing a real effort, a concerted effort by these nations that feel left behind, or part of these, especially the BRICS nations, to move away from the dollar and get into gold. And I think that is the biggest argument why it's good to hold gold, because gold very well could take the center stage again and replace the dollar. Because if we ever get in any trouble, gold is going to be where it's at. And I also think that's why we have these gold reserves. And for those who say that the gold is not there in Fort Knox, or we don't have the amount that we say we have, well, if you think about it, over the course of history, since the Federal Reserve and Nixon taking us fully off the standard, why would we get rid of the gold? Especially when the price was fixed for so long, it really wouldn't make sense. I think that even the most Keynesian of us that understands a little bit the history of gold, why not just keep the gold? Just in case, for a rainy day. I posted a video earlier about how the Dutch central bank made the mention that in the case of an economic collapse, well, gold will be needed to restart. There's something to that. Very unusual for a central bank to say that, but nonetheless, it's something that even Ben Bernanke, I think, deep down understands. And that's why it's there, and that's why they're holding it. And they may not be making it public very often. In fact, it really wasn't until Secretary of Treasury Mnuchin went down there. That really surprised me that he even mentioned it. I posted a video about that as well, too, when he went and saw the gold. But, when you have that kind of situation there, that if it's right for the central bankers to hold gold and accumulate it, and for even the central bank of central banks, known as the Bank of International Settlements, Basel, well, hey, we might as well make it a tier 1 asset for our portfolios too. The physical gold, yes indeed, the ultimate reserve of the reserves of currency. That's right, because gold is money. The dollar, the euro, the yen, the renminbi, sterling pound, Canadian and Australian dollars, and the Swiss francs, those are fiat currencies and nothing more. There you have it, folks. Post your thoughts below on what you think about this and the dollar's hegemony and where it will be. How long will it last, do you think? And what are your thoughts on gold and these other nations accumulating gold? And are you doing the same thing? I'd like to extend a multitude of gratitude to y'all for watching and encourage you to please rate, share, and I do mean that. I really am not just saying that as a talking point, but it does help if you share these videos on other platforms for sure to get the message out there. And rate, comment, and subscribe.